Hey, I'm Christiny Tosi, the chef, owner, and founder of Milk Bar in New York City. We're making some really fun recipes today to show how Hobart Equipment really is my partner in innovation and inspiration and helps me bring my creative ideas and food to the table. The volcano's super simple in its composition. It's bread dough and it's a potato gratin. The bread dough is a very, very standard bread dough. It's some warm water and some yeast that get whisked together to activate the yeast. You're gonna whisk that yeast until you start to see the bubbles come up in the water, which means that the yeast is alive and well. And then in the bowl of a 20-quart Legacy Hobart mixer, you're going to add bread flour and a whole lot of it. Some kosher salt so that bread tastes nice and balanced in flavor. And then that yeast that we mixed into nice warm water also goes in the bowl. Now, I like to take my first minute with a bread hook, and I like to just get that dough started mixing. A standard bread dough really shouldn't be mixed on a high speed at all. And using the angle of this bread hook here really helps get into the bottom of the bowl and helps get that bread dough starting to come together, like you can see here, into a nice shaggy mess, which just means the time spent in the mixer is a little less. I'm going to get the bowl in place, attach the hook, make sure it clicks into place, close the gate, and we're gonna start again on that really slow speed. It's a bread dough. Don't wanna go too fast. The secret to our bread dough is that it's very simple. There's no sugar in it, there's just a little salt. It's the perfect canvas for something sweet or something savory. I love to create in both spaces. It's going to take about 2 minutes to really come together. Our dough has come from that shaggy mass into a nice round ball, so this is the moment that we're going to set the timer for 7 minutes. 7 minutes is the magical time. That maximizes the gluten strands that are gonna develop as this dough mixes. We want the gluten strands to be nice and long because we're gonna use this dough to wrap around a really delicious potato gratin. Our 7 minutes is up. The mixer beeps at you right when that timer goes off, so you don't have a moment wasted. One of my favorite parts. And we're gonna pop this dough into a greased container, and we're gonna let the dough sit for about an hour and give the dough a moment to really develop. While our dough is resting for the next hour, we're going to prepare the potato gratin. Super simple, russet potatoes peeled, rested in some cold water so they don't oxidize. And then we feed these potatoes in through the continuous feed food processor. I like to use a 4mm bit because I think it gives just the right slice thickness for this potato gratin. Super simple to use. Real talk, I just sliced 5 potatoes in a matter of seconds. It's one of my favorite parts about the continuous feed food processor and really equipment in general, especially Hobart Equipment. The reality is that we sell so many volcanoes in our kitchen that there's no way that we would be able to peel and slice potatoes by hand, which almost eliminates the thought of creating something like a volcano in our kitchen. But when you have really, really dependable equipment like this food processor, you actually have the ability to create in a space that you otherwise would never be able to really think about a potato with a sense of wonder, a sense of creativity, or just to save yourself the time to go back into the kitchen and create something new and exciting. Now for my gratin, I like to make a nice pancetta Gruyere cheese based filling, some heavy cream steeped in rosemary. To get my recipe for a gratin, click here. I made a gratin already because the secret to the volcano is the gratin needs to be made ahead of time. You want it to be nice and cold so it assembles into the bread just right. Our dough has spent an hour rising. Look at how big and tall it is. We're gonna dust our work surface with a little bit of extra flour so that bread dough doesn't stick. We're gonna get that dough out on the table. Perfect. So you can really see where the yeast has expanded there. Lots of bubbles, lots of height. That's exactly what we're looking for to happen in that hour that we let it sit. I'd just like to work the dough down a little bit. You want to punch a little bit of that air out. Don't worry, it will come back. It's time to portion the dough out into the size that each volcano will become. I like to make a log, cut it in half, and then cut pieces of each one of those logs. Any dough you're not using, set to the side. So this dough is just wet enough. It shouldn't be sticking to your hands. You're going to shape it into little rounds and set it to the side to create a little bit more work surface for yourself. Now, with each round that you've set aside, you're going to take a little bit more flour and you're going to stretch that dough out a little bit between your first fingers and your thumbs, almost like you're making a mini pizza. Just to flatten the dough out. We're not using a rolling pin. We want a really organic feel to it. We're going to put down some caramelized onions onto the dough first. The caramelized onions provide a sweetness. They're juicy. They just provide a little extra complexity to the volcano. It's time to scoop out the gratin, which I've already sliced. And the gratin goes just right over the onion. You can see those layers of potatoes that we sliced. So our dough's proof and portioned. We have the caramelized onions. We have that super cheesy potato gratin. Delicious as is, but it's a volcano, so it's meant to be a flavor explosion, which means we need to wrap this pretty little present up. You're going to grab the tails of each side of that bread dough, pinch them, and seam side down, give them a little form, and transfer them to a greased sheet pan. Now, this dough's super forgiving because we gave it plenty of time to rest. We kneaded it for 7 minutes once it came together from a shaggy mass. So you really can do no wrong when it comes to tying these little presents up. These volcanoes are going to erupt with that cheesy gratin. So what we need to do next is cut crosses into the tops of these volcanoes so that air has a little bit of a place to escape. And we are going to egg wash these dough rounds so that we have a nice shiny finish. Egg wash is a mixture of eggs and water. It's just a brushable form of egg so that we get a nice crisp, beautiful finish. And then once each of these dough rounds is egg washed, we stuff them with a little extra shredded Gruyere cheese. That cheese caramelizes on the top and infuses just a little bit more flavor into the already flavor-filled gratin. And it really looks like an explosion of something that's irresistible. So these puppies are ready to go off to the oven, 375 degrees for about 20 minutes until they're nice and golden brown. Here are the volcanoes, hot out of the oven. They're one of my favorite savory baked goods that we make here at Milk Bar. I say we cut inside one to really see imagination at its finest. Nice and crusty. It's really good, right?